From the station working for you, this is Good Morning Indiana, streaming now.
Obviously, the mayor is ultimately responsible, and that's why at the beginning of my term, I made it clear that I need to listen, I need to act, and then I need to be held accountable.
City leaders once again addressing historic and ongoing violence across Indianapolis. Now at 4:30, the push for answers and solutions. Plus, Eli Lilly is putting a temporary stop to a clinical trial for a potential coronavirus treatment. Working for you, what's next as the drug makers continue to search for a better treatment and vaccine for COVID-19. And Chicago has added Indiana to its emergency travel order. What you need to know if you're planning a trip to the Windy City. But before we get to those top stories today, I want to thank you for joining our team here on Good Morning Indiana on this Wednesday. I'm Lauren Casey. Todd Clausen is standing by in studio with me this morning. Todd, yesterday got pretty nice out there. It was a warm one for October. What can we expect today?
You know, today's going to actually be even a little bit warmer. That's the good news, Lauren. The problem is today we are going to contend with some very, very gusty winds. Now, it is not windy right now, but throughout the day, these winds, they are going to pick up. The view from IMS looking back towards downtown Indianapolis skyline looking great here this morning. 49 degrees. There's those winds. They're pretty light. The humidity is dry, and there are some fire concerns. National Weather Service put out a statement here this morning advising you not to do any burning today because of the low humidity and the windy conditions. Wind speeds right now, not much of an issue, but these will really pick up as the day goes on. We're in the 40s with one low and 50 out there in Muncie at 51 degrees, 42 in Terre Haute, 43 in Lafayette with mainly clear skies. Yesterday, not a cloud in the sky. Today, we'll call it partly cloudy across the area. Some of these clouds start to make their way through the area. But the big story is going to be the wind that'll be picking up throughout the day today. So 40s into the 50s, close to 70 degrees already by the 1 o'clock hour, easily into the 70s later on this afternoon. More on that coming up in just a few minutes. Lauren.
All right, Todd, thanks so much. Let's take a look at traffic as you're heading out the door early on this Wednesday. This is I-65, a view near 38th Street on the northwest side. You can see traffic here is moving along smoothly. Very quiet this morning, both northbound and southbound. No major crashes or issues to slow you down around the metro area. Of course, we'll continue to keep an eye on things and keep you updated. Well, the city of Indianapolis has seen a surge in deadly violence this year. IMPD is investigating 7 homicides from this past weekend alone. And the number of intentional homicides in Indianapolis is at an all-time high, with 2.5 months left to go in the year. IMPD reports 187 total homicides, with 160 of those classified as intentional homicides. Tuesday, Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett and IMPD Chief Randall Taylor and other city leaders addressed this urgent problem. Working for you, we asked what new ideas does the city have to stop the violence?
The ideas themselves may not be brand new, but we're doubling down. We will continue to add more IMPD officers in 2021. We will continue to expand our community-based, beat-oriented policing.
Mayor Joe Hogsett specifically mentioned giving more funding to the group violence intervention that brings together law enforcement, service providers, and members of the community to confront those at highest risk of committing or falling victim to violent crime. The goal is to help stop the violence before it begins. This program has been hampered this year due to the pandemic, but the mayor says next year the city will increase funding for the group violence intervention by more than $100,000. The site of yesterday's news conference was at Rising Star Apartments on the northeast side of Indianapolis. This complex is an example of how the city and community groups are working together to fight violence. Nonprofit organization Community Action of Greater Indianapolis, Inc. recently received a $75,000 crime prevention grant from the Office of Public Health and Safety. They used part of that money to open a permanent office in this apartment complex.
In that grant, we have Mothers Against Violence, who is a group that provides assistance to families who are unfortunately lost loved ones to gun violence. They have grief counseling, they are wraparound, and they're wonderful mothers themselves, and so they understand that pain. We have another partner involved in this, Growing Indy, that provides cognitive-based behavioral therapy to start changing mindsets, because if we're doing all this work and we're not touching mindsets in their families, it doesn't mean much.
Earlier this year, the city also increased funding for the gun violence interruption program that works to identify those most at risk of gun violence. Violence in Indianapolis is an ongoing problem, and we here at WRTV will continue to hold city leaders accountable and push for answers and solutions. You can always find the very latest information on this issue by logging on to WRTV.com. The time right now is 4:35. This morning, Metro Police are asking for your help in a hit-and-run investigation that critically injured a cyclist. Police say an SUV hit a person riding a bicycle on Sherman Drive and Pleasant Run Parkway on the east side just after 9 o'clock Thursday morning. Investigators released surveillance pictures of the SUV. It's described as a gold or tan late 1990s to early 2000s model Chevy Tahoe or GMC Yukon. Police say that the vehicle has some unique features. The wheels are aftermarket. The side mirrors are oversized and the hood has a raised area in the center. In our Democracy 2020 coverage, we are just 20 days away from the November election, and several organizations are working together on an effort to make sure that your vote counts. Right now, the group Protect the Vote is recruiting thousands of volunteers across the country. They'll be on hand at polling sites to answer any questions and even provide attorneys if voters run into trouble casting their ballots. Now, these volunteers, they're not poll workers or poll watchers, rather, which are usually affiliated with a particular candidate. Instead, they are called poll monitors, and they are nonpartisan.
It's even more incumbent on us, particularly wearing our nonpartisan hat, to make sure that the election runs smoothly, because we know that folks are going to be looking carefully.
It's about making sure that every voter gets their ballot counted and their voice heard in our democracy. And that's really something we can all come together on.
If you have a problem at the polls, Protect the Vote has a nationwide hotline staffed by attorneys with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. The numbers for different languages are on your screen right now. If you'd like to volunteer as a poll monitor, you can go to protectthevote.net. And here are some key dates ahead of Election Day. If you want to vote by mail, you must request your ballot by October 22nd, but you're also encouraged to do so as soon as possible. And a federal appeals court has sided with the state of Indiana on the deadline to receive those absentee ballots. That means election officials must now receive your ballot by noon on Election Day. And for more resources and information about voting in Indiana, you can go to the Vote in 2020 digital section of our website, WRTV.com. The time right now is 4:37. Let's turn now to the ongoing impact the pandemic is having on Hoosier lives. State health officials report another day with more than 1,000 COVID-19 cases. 1,569 new cases of COVID-19 have been reported, and that brings the total number of Hoosiers who have contracted the virus to 138,104. State health officials also report 27 new COVID-19 related deaths. To date, 3,595 Hoosiers have died with COVID-19. Indiana's 7-day positivity rate is now at 5.3%. The continuing rise in cases has prompted Chicago health officials to add our state to its travel quarantine list. That means anyone visiting or returning to Chicago from Indiana must quarantine for up to 14 days upon entering the city. North Carolina, Rhode Island, and New Mexico were also added to the order on Tuesday. The emergency travel order now applies to 25 states and Puerto Rico. Chicago residents are strongly advised not to travel to the states on the list. Those in violation of the order could face fines of $100 to $500 per day, or up to $7,000. The order goes into effect this Friday. Now, we expect to get an update from the state health officials later this afternoon. As of now, we remain in stage 5 of Governor Holcomb's back on track reopening plan. The statewide mask mandate is still set to expire on Saturday. As of now, you can find updates on both on air and online at WRTV.com. This morning, researchers are putting the brakes on one of the clinical trials for a potential coronavirus treatment. On Tuesday, Indiana-based pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly said it's pausing its ongoing trial for safety reasons. In a statement, Lilly said the move was recommended by independent monitors. The announcement comes just one day after Johnson & Johnson paused its phase 3 vaccine trials. Lilly is testing an antibody treatment similar to the one made by Regeneron that was given to President Trump. Advanced trials of 2 other potential vaccines made by Moderna and Pfizer are still moving along. University of Notre Dame President Reverend John L. Jenkins has ended his quarantine. Jenkins tested positive for COVID-19 after attending Judge Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court nomination ceremony last month. Like many there, he did not wear a face mask or maintain social distancing. Jenkins has since apologized for not wearing a mask. During his quarantine, Jenkins reported experiencing some mild symptoms, but he's continued to work from home. In a statement released on Monday, Notre Dame said Jenkins is, quote, symptom-free and looking forward to resuming his normal activities, end quote. The high-stakes confirmation hearings for Judge Amy Coney Barrett continue today. Just after the break, we'll look at the latest from Washington. And debate over hunting rules out in Hancock County prompting potential change. Still to come, what's being discussed and how it could affect you. Todd.
And Lauren, gusty southerly winds here throughout the day today are going to bring warm temperatures into central Indiana. In fact, today is going to be the warmest day that I see in our forecast in quite some time, as we will approach 80 degrees. The cool down starts tomorrow. We'll talk about that and look ahead to your weekend as well, coming up in your WRTV Storm Team forecast right here on Good Morning Indiana.
Welcome back. This morning, Americans could see another financial relief sooner than expected. Senate Majority Leader announcing on Tuesday that he'll hold a vote on a small business loan bill that'll replenish the Paycheck Protection Program when lawmakers return to Capitol Hill next week. The GOP effort, however, is likely to be blocked. Negotiations over another coronavirus relief package have remained at a stalemate for months now. Democratic leaders have repeatedly rejected the piecemeal approaches to the next coronavirus relief effort. Instead, they're insisting on a broad comprehensive response to the economic and public health issues facing the country. Also in Washington, the Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to end the census count early. The decision will stand while an appeal plays out in lower courts. At issue is whether the administration's decision to shorten the census count by more than a month should be allowed. The White House says the shortened deadline is necessary to give the Commerce Department enough time to meet a December 31st deadline to report the final numbers. That decision was made shortly after a policy that excludes undocumented immigrants when dividing seats in the U.S. House of Representatives between states. A lower court blocked the policy, and it's currently on an appeal to the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court confirmation hearing of Judge Amy Coney Barrett continues today. In the high-stakes proceedings, Barrett is facing questions on abortion, health care, and the possibility of a disputed election. During a marathon 11-hour hearing on Tuesday, Barrett repeatedly insisted that her personal views will not interfere with the court. She also called several cases super precedents, which she believes cannot be challenged. Roe v. Wade was not one of those, and with the election just 20 days away, Barrett was asked whether she would recuse herself from an election dispute case as President Trump's nominee.
I would consider it, I certainly hope that all members of the committee have more confidence in my integrity than to think that I would allow myself to be used as a pawn to decide this election.
The Senate Judiciary Committee is expected to approve Barrett tomorrow, setting up her likely confirmation by the full Senate before Election Day. At 4:45, a federal court has upheld multiple abortion regulations in the state of Indiana. This after Whole Women's Health Alliance, an abortion provider, sued the state back in 2018. Under the ruling, all abortion clinics must be licensed. Abortion providers must report abortions and have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. Also, women seeking abortions must have an ultrasound. The informed consent process must be done at least 18 hours before the procedure. And women seeking abortions must wait 18 hours after the informed consent consultation before having the procedure. Several other regulations are still being considered now by the court. Well, the time is 4:46. As hunting season begins, some people out in Hancock County want to test out their scopes and equipment on their own property, but an old ordinance may not allow them to do that. WRTV's own Stephanie Wade explains what's being considered by county commissioners.
Well, we have behind us what I thought was a responsible gun owner's backstop.
The dirt is bought, and now Neil Anderson wants to practice his shot.
A lot of time and money was put into bringing all this dirt and setting it up to properly stop a firearm from going anywhere else in a dangerous manner.
As hunting season begins, Anderson got all this dirt to invest in a proper backstop for recreational shooting with his grandchildren.
Sighting in scopes, target practicing, setting up targets and shooting at them.
But as the current Hancock County ordinance stands, people cannot legally shoot guns in their backyards without special approval from the county's Board of Zoning Appeals. and must be 300 feet from another person's home.
I've lived out here for almost 30 years now, and never knew that law was on the book.
Problem is, not many people knew about it. Officials admitting the ordinance wasn't often enforced.
This has always been there, kind of. It's just something that's came up because of this, dispute between the two neighbors here recently.
After months of people pushing to relax the county's rules, an amendment stood before the Planning Commission to do away with the special variance approval. But planning authorities decided to keep the ordinance as is.
Why is this ordinance in place? And if you got the commissioners are already saying they don't enforce it, well, then let's get rid of the rules so we don't have this issue.
Usually we don't have to go out until somebody complains. That's kind of what we do.
Sheriff Brad Burkhart tells me all law enforcement can do is, if they receive a call, make sure someone is shooting 300 feet from a neighbor's home. But the zoning requirements fall under the Board of Zoning Appeals. Moving forward, he just urges everyone to be safe and respectful of their neighbors.
That's all I ask, I suppose, is, as we do things properly, we do it safely.
Stephanie Wade, WRTV.
Stephanie, thank you. So the Hancock County Commissioners still have the final vote, though the Planning Commission recommended not changing the ordinance. Commissions still have 90 days to change it if they do want to do that. All right, let's get a check of our forecast for today. Town, if people are getting outside, maybe in their own backyards, it's been pretty dry here across central Indiana.
It's been very dry. We tacked on another day yesterday with no rainfall. That made it 56 days in a row without a tenth of an inch or more of rainfall. And today is going to be 57. And the reason why I started out with this graphic, even because there's no rain in the forecast, today is going to turn into a pretty windy day. And with the dry conditions and the wind starting to kick up and the warm conditions as well, there is a concern for some fires here throughout the course of the day today. So the National Weather Service is asking people not to do any burning here throughout the day today as these winds really start to pick up. A gorgeous view this morning of our skyline from IMS, looking back off towards the east. Skies are mainly clear, 49 degrees in Indianapolis. The wind not really an issue here this morning. I'll walk you through the day hour by hour. But the wind's only 8 miles per hour, so not too big of a concern really until we get into the afternoon and then eventually into the evening hours. 40s and 50s here temperature-wise. 43 in Lafayette, 51 in Connersville, as well as Muncie throughout the day today. It's going to warm very quickly as these winds turn a little more southerly. We'll climb to the 40s this morning. It's already near 60 degrees by 11 a.m., then easily into the 70s by mid-afternoon, with highs today that in some areas could approach 80 degrees. So it's going to be a warm day. In fact, it could be the warmest day that we see in quite some time across the area. Now, one other subtle change that you'll see today compared to the past few days is instead of those crystal clear skies, we're going to have some clouds that'll start to make their way into the area. So we'll call it partly cloudy, but none of this rain that you see to the north makes it in here for the day today. That is not going to arrive in the forecast until tomorrow. Now, here's the time stamp this morning, 4:33. Keep an eye on that as I advance this graphic for you. And you can notice the colors moving in and the wind speeds starting to pick up. So as we get into the afternoon hours here, 4 p.m., winds anywhere from about 20 to 30 miles per hour. Winds will continue to pick up after sunset. So this evening it is very windy with gusts up to maybe 40 miles per hour as you head into early Thursday morning. You notice those arrows though were out of the south. That's what's going to bring in the warmth. Now as we transition into Thursday, you see those arrows start to turn from a northwesterly direction once the cold front goes through. And that's why the winds will be picking up. There's a front heading our way. So tomorrow is a whole different ball game. We start off in the morning with temperatures near 60, and that's going to be our high for the day tomorrow. As the day progresses tomorrow, the temperatures will fall, so definitely have the jacket handy tomorrow, and maybe you'll want to have the rain jacket because as the front comes through, there could be some showers as early as the morning hours. Nothing heavy coming through, but when you factor in the showers combined with what is going to be some gusty winds, it's not going to be the most pleasant afternoon tomorrow. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Sunday, though, plenty of sunshine, Lauren, but cool. Friday's high is only 57 degrees.
All right, Todd, thank you. Let's take a look at traffic right now. Things are pretty quiet around the metro area. This is I-70 out in Plainfield, and you can see traffic is traveling smoothly, pretty quiet out that way as well. Of course, we'll keep you updated on any trouble spots you need to avoid this Wednesday morning. The time now is 4:52. This morning, 3 people are on their way to the International Space Station. NASA astronaut Kate Rubins is heading to the ISS for a second time, along with 2 Russian cosmonauts. The trio took off at 1:45 this morning, blasting off on a Russian rocket out of Kazakhstan. Now, they are set to dock with the space station in just minutes. Their mission is the latest in a chain that spans nearly 20 years of continuous human presence in space. Rubins first went to the International Space Station 4 years ago, becoming the 60th woman to fly into space. Pretty cool. Well, coming up, we're just 20 days away from the 2020 election, and thousands of Hoosiers have already cast their votes. All new at 5 o'clock, we're checking in with some early voting sites to see what you can expect if you plan to head to the polls before Election Day. It's 4:53. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Good Morning Indiana. A Texas teen is walking tall after shattering 2 Guinness World Records. Meet Macy Curran. The towering 17-year-old stands at 6 feet 10 inches tall on legs that measure 53 inches. That means that they make up 60% of her total height. She holds the world records for longest legs on a female and on a teenager. Macy says she does have some trouble finding clothes that fit, but on the bright side, she dominates on the volleyball court. She says she wants to be the world's tallest model, and she wants to inspire other tall women to embrace their height. She would be towering over you, Todd.
Right? Imagine what she'd look like next to Raphael.
Oh.
He's not even here to defend himself yet.
I know.
We'll hear from him at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
All right, outside right now, we're dealing with quiet conditions. It's going to be a windy day for us with some gusts up to 35 miles per hour, with the windiest of the conditions being closer to sunset and then beyond. It's a warm day today, 79. Tomorrow, showers with falling temperatures, so that high of 61 is early in the day, and then it's a cooler Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but dry with plenty of sunshine. The time now is 4:57. We're back in just a couple minutes.